life stories. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel to begin today's story. In today's episode, we dive into a powerful true story of love, trust, and betrayal. What happens when the people you marry into believe they know better, and worse? When your own partner agrees. A young woman finds herself caught between loyalty and self-respect when her husband secretly hands over their finances to his wealthy parents. But what they didn't know was that she wasn't just a wife, she was a financial fraud investigator. Stay with us as we unravel this emotional and eye-opening journey. They say love can blind you. And I suppose in my case, it did, though not in the way people usually mean. I loved Connor deeply. We'd been together 5 years before we finally tied the knot. He was steady, sweet, and made me laugh even when I didn't want to. In many ways, he felt like home, but there was one part of him I never fully understood, his parents. Linda and Charles Hamilton. Now, let me make something clear. I didn't come from wealth. But I didn't grow up struggling either. My parents were immigrants who sacrificed everything so their children could have a shot at something better. I worked 2 jobs in college, earned my business degree, and built a career in financial fraud investigations. By the time I met Connor, I had already learned how to stand on my own. I was proud of that. The Hamiltons, however, came from a very different world. Old money, summer homes in Westport, trips to Tuscany every July, a new car every 2 years. They weren't overtly cruel, but their smiles felt like masks. Their compliments sharp-edged and condescending. You probably wouldn't understand, Linda would say with a grin when discussing investment portfolios. Charles, always composed, once told Connor in front of me, "I hope you know how generous you're being." As if I were a charity case. Not his wife. Connor never seemed to notice. Or maybe he did, but chose to ignore it. I let it slide at first. After all, I wasn't marrying them. But then came the day he walked into our living room with that look, half excitement, half sheepishness, and said, "My parents are going to help us manage our money." I laughed, thinking he was joking. "What do you mean, help?" He smiled, like a child proud of his good decision. "They think we're still young. That we could use guidance managing our finances. Just until we're more stable." "Connor," I said slowly, "we both have stable jobs. We've saved. We're not kids." He hesitated. "It's not like that. My dad set up a family trust. It's how they've always managed the family money. They're just going to handle things for a while." My heart sank. "Wait, what did you do?" "I moved our savings into the trust," he said, as if that were a normal sentence to say out loud. "Everything's in there now. They'll manage it for us." And just like that, the air in the room changed. My stomach dropped. I stared at him, struggling to process what he had just said. This wasn't some small decision, this was everything. My hard-earned savings, the emergency fund, the future we were supposed to be building together. "You're telling me I have to ask your parents if I want to spend my money?" I asked, my voice calm only because it was on the edge of something darker. "They're not controlling it," he insisted. "They're just making sure we make smart decisions." I wanted to scream, but instead, I smiled, nodded, told him I understood. Then I opened my laptop. "You see, the thing about being underestimated is that it gives you a powerful advantage." Connor and his parents never asked what I actually did for a living. They assumed things, just like they assumed I'd sit quietly while they took over. But I knew how trusts worked. I knew how to trace money. How to hide it, how to find it again. That night, while Connor slept peacefully beside me, I moved every dollar of my savings into a separate account. Then I withdrew over $200,000 from our joint account. And finally, I emptied the trust. I didn't do it out of revenge. I did it because no one, has the right to take away your autonomy. Not even the man you love. When morning came, and Connor's phone rang, I was already drinking my coffee. He looked confused at first, then pale, and when his mother's voice screeched through the phone, accusing and frantic, I took another sip and said softly, "Funny, I just transferred something too." The kitchen was filled with a silence so loud, It pressed against my eardrums. Connor sat across from me, phone in one hand, confusion and disbelief written all over his face. His mother's voice crackled on speaker, shrill and angry. You had no right to do this. I raised an eyebrow, calm as ever. You mean like how you had no right to take control of my money? Charles's voice cut in, low and forceful. You don't understand how finances work. Young lady, you've made a huge mistake. I laughed. Actually laughed. Oh, Linda, Charles. I work in financial fraud investigations. You really think I don't understand how money works? Their silence was delicious. I leaned forward, voice light and honey sweet. Let me explain something. Since I never legally signed over control, your access to that trust? It was invalid. And what's more, I talked to a lawyer. Connor flinched beside me. I kept my gaze steady. Turns out, transferring marital assets into a trust without both spouses' consent? Not legal, and depending on how the funds were moved, it could even be considered financial abuse. You don't want to start a war with us, Charles said, his voice suddenly cold. Oh, Charles, I said with a smile. I already did. Connor looked at me like I'd become someone he didn't recognize. Maybe I had, or maybe this was always me. And he never truly saw it. You trusted them, I said quietly, not me, them, and they took everything from me. His face crumpled, guilt fighting with panic, but I wasn't finished. I watched him, really watched him, and for the first time I saw how little power he actually had in his own family. He was a grown man who still needed their approval. Who'd let them reach into our life and rearrange it without hesitation? And now that their perfect plan was unraveling, I could see something else, fear. His parents were no longer yelling. They were listening, calculating. You stole from us, Linda said suddenly, her voice brittle. I stood up, slowly. No, you stole from me, and now I want to know why. I could tell there was something deeper going on. I saw it in Charles's perfectly still face, in Linda's sudden silence, in the way Connor wouldn't meet my eyes. You weren't just managing money, were you? I said, my voice sharp now. You were hiding something. Still no answer. So I played my final card. I've already hired a forensic accountant. If there's something buried in that trust, it's going to come out. Charles's tone turned to ice. You don't want to go down that road. Sounds like a threat, I replied, and I don't respond well to threats. Connor finally stood, panic seeping through his every move. Let's just talk, please. Privately, without the drama. No, I said, I like an audience. They thought they could break me, control me, fold me neatly into their world. But they forgot the most important rule of power. When you corner a woman who has nothing left to lose, she will burn the entire system down. Connor was trembling now. I could see it in the way his hands gripped the edge of the counter. Knuckles white. I had never seen him like this, so small, so unsure. But it was too late for that. I had been small in his world for far too long. His parents were still on speaker, breathing heavily, listening, waiting, and that told me everything I needed to know. They were afraid. Not of losing money. Wealthy people don't panic over bank balances. They panic over exposure. I tilted my head, watching Connor's eyes dart between me and the phone. There's something else, isn't there? I asked, softly. He swallowed but said nothing. His fingers curled into fists. I turned my gaze to Charles. He was calm, too calm. That kind of stillness only comes when someone is desperately holding something in. Then I looked at Linda, and there it was. The tiniest hitch in her breath. Barely a sound, but enough. Enough for me to know. I had hit the nerve. The trust isn't just holding our money, I said slowly. Is it? Neither of them answered. I took a step forward. What exactly would I find if I asked a forensic accountant to look a little deeper? Charles? Because I have a feeling this goes beyond a few smart investments. His face remained unreadable, but the silence was damning. It wrapped around all of us, pressing in like a storm about to break. Connor suddenly grabbed my wrist. Stop. Just stop, please. I yanked my arm away. Get your hands off me. And in that moment, I knew I was done. Done being the polite daughter-in-law. Done being the woman who gave the benefit of the doubt. Done being betrayed in my own marriage. I turned and walked toward the door. "Where are you going?" Connor asked, his voice cracking. I looked back at him. Not with anger, but with clarity. To talk to someone who knows how to deal with financial criminals. His face drained of all color. His hands were shaking. "Just don't tell anyone yet. Okay? Just give me a chance to fix this." I paused, my hand on the doorknob. "Is there something you want to tell me?" "No," he said, too quickly. I saw the lie before he finished the word. I walked back into the kitchen. Calm now. I placed my purse on the counter like I hadn't just torn everything apart. "Let's play a game," I said. "Let's pretend I don't already know everything. Why don't you tell me what your family's been doing with our money?" Connor froze. The voice on the phone, Linda's voice, came in a whisper. "Don't say anything." But I didn't stop. I looked at Charles, then back at Connor. "This isn't just about control. This is about fraud, isn't it?" Still, no one spoke. Then I turned to Connor again. "You let them treat me like a child. You gave away everything we built. And now you're telling me I shouldn't dig?" He was shaking. And suddenly, I knew I had to dig. I left the house that day with nothing but my phone, my purse, and the truth. I drove straight to my lawyer's office, the wheels in my mind spinning faster than the car beneath me. Something was deeply wrong with the Hamilton Family Trust. I had no idea how far it went. But I was done being in the dark. I was going to find out everything. What we uncovered was bigger than I ever imagined, layers of financial fraud. Hidden accounts. Tax evasion. They hadn't just stolen from me. They had been stealing from the system for years. And Connor, whether he meant to or not, had been helping them cover it up. When I confronted him with the evidence, he cried. He begged. He said he didn't know. Maybe that was true. Maybe not. But the damage was done. This wasn't just about money anymore. It was about trust. About respect. About finally seeing the truth of someone I thought I knew. In the end, I walked away. Not because I wanted to, but because I had to. I rebuilt my life piece by piece, with no help from the people who once tried to control it. And though it wasn't easy, I found peace in knowing I had taken back what was mine, not just the money, but my voice, my power. Connor remained where I left him, caught in the web his parents had spun. As for me, I kept walking forward. Sometimes the strongest thing you can do is walk away. If this story moved you, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to Life Stories for more powerful real-life experiences. See you in the next video.